Ryan!
Hi, Spencer.
What are you doing October 30th?
I'm going to be in Los Angeles.
Sick, me too.
In the city of Lost Angels.
I'm going to be at the Satellite talking about weird shit with you and Dave Stone and Ian Abramson, and Lydia Liza might even show up.
I was going to say, can I come? But you already said I'm going to be there. So y'all know I'm going to be there. Hey, we're doing our first live episode on the West Coast. It's in Los Angeles. It is October 30th. Show starts at 8 p.m.
Yep.
And tickets are on sale right now. If you go to whatifpodcast.com/LA, Spencer's right. You can see us. We're going to do a full live episode taping there. Dave Stone, Ian Abramson.
That's the one, baby.
Those cats are going to be opening up for us with some comedy. It should be a really fucking fun night. Also, after the show, we're going to be doing a live meet and greet hang session at a place yet to be determined. We'll let you know what that is at the live show. So go to whatifpodcast.com/LA. Get your tickets. We need your support. We'd love to see your pretty, shining, weird faces. It should be a good time.
Yeah. Let's start the show.
Hi, welcome to the What If Podcast. Your host tonight is going to be Spanker Wetnat and then Ryan Crapper Tap. Enjoy.
I like it when she makes fun of your name, too.
Uh-huh.
It makes me feel better.
Spanker whatnot.
Spanker Watnat, I think it was. It was more Watnat than it was whatnot.
Watnat.
All that and Watnat. What's up, man?
Hey.
How are you?
Sore.
How the frick are you?
Hurting.
I can't say how the frick are you. That's not in Sweary Boy's character.
Well,
we did threaten,
we do what we want.
We did threaten recently to try to do a no swears episode for What If Loves the Kids. You know.
Huh?
You know, Trick Daddy, Trick Love the Kids. A la Trick Daddy, do a no swears What If episode that could be playable.
All right, I'll see how far I can go today.
No.
Yep.
Bro, we're talking about a very...
Too late.
But I'm going to ruin it right away.
Well.
All right. Why are you sore? Did you run 1,000 miles today?
11. It's too many.
It's pretty close to...
It's too many.
It's closer to 1,000 than I've ever run. So there's that.
It's too close to 1,000.
It's too close to... Gotta walk that back, but...
Yeah, the old legs have felt better.
I biked 13 miles today.
Sick.
And my legs hurt.
We should have gone like boxer trainer on it and
me right next to you.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Like the cut scene from Punch Out.
Oh, cut scene from Punch Out.
It's okay. That's like a almost 30-year-old reference.
Okay. Yeah. Is that a movie I haven't seen?
No, the Nintendo game.
Oh, an N64.
Yeah, in between like every couple matches, they would show Lil Mac running behind the fat dude on the bike.
Okay.
In his pink sweatsuit.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Sick.
Yeah.
Wow, you have a very specific memory.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Played a lot of Punch Out?
I did, actually. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I did not play a lot of Punch Out.
25 years ago or so.
It fucking stuck, bud.
You know what? Very few things stick in here, but when they do, they're usually useless.
They're usually useless and like hyperbolically specific in the other direction.
Yep. So specific as to be totally pointless.
Proud of you. Hey.
That's what I got.
I'm proud of you. Well, congrats, man. You got to be like T-minus a couple weeks till you're half.
21st of this month.
21st of this month. That's 3 weeks away, bud.
Not even.
Not just about.
Mm-hmm.
Sick. Mm-hmm. That means I'm getting married in 4. What's up?
That's correct.
Let's go.
I've reworked the my training schedule a little bit, so I don't have to run 10 in the middle of your bachelor party this weekend.
Okay. Is that why you're not coming up till
Friday?
Friday?
That would go poorly for everyone.
Is that why you're not coming up till Friday?
Well, it's
you're like, shit, I'm
going
to run down here.
I'm just going to run the 150 miles north. See, I'm leaving tonight, actually. I'll meet you guys there on Friday.
Just grab a beer, turn it around, and be like, all right, I'll see you guys on Monday. Just go over your ass right
back. Sleep in the yard for a couple hours.
Somebody feed me. I'm real tired.
Update for our Patreon listeners. After we record that episode where I had slept for 1 hour,
hey,
I slept for 12 hours on that evening.
Let's go.
9:30 to 9:30.
Let's go.
I was proud of myself. I haven't done that in a long time.
That's pretty dope.
It was great.
God, I feel like I could lay down and sleep for 12 hours right now.
Felt pretty good.
Should we give people another update about the Patreon, about the voicemail we received?
What now?
The voicemail we received after this week's Patreon related to the topic from this week's Patreon.
I don't think I saw that. If we have a
you did.
voicemail-
You took a screen capture of it and sent it to me.
Oh yeah.
Is that worth talking about? I feel like we should tell everybody.
So,
okay, so
if you are not on the Patreon, we gave an update on Mad Mike Hughes, the limo driver / daredevil.
correct.
And he's doing another thing where he's launching his dumbass into space on a water heater he found on Craigslist.
Mike, you gotta watch out, bud.
Anyway, so this is probably ruining our chances at interviewing him, but we hit up the contact form on his website on last week's Patreon.
We said we wanted to ask him about his stunts and his tricks and where he's headed and his belief in the Earth being flat.
Yeah, and he called us back within like an hour, I think, and said that he's down.
Should we play it? Or should we not play it?
Yeah, whatever. Let's see if I can find it.
All right.
Here we go. I think this is the one.
Oh, hey, it's Mad Mike Hughes. I just got your email. Yeah, I'm interested in doing something with you. You know, I need to check to see if my Skype account's still current. I'm pretty low tech. Anyway, 9.
All right.
Oops. Well,
right by my house, but 612 area code. It sounds like I think that's the Phoenix area code if I remember right.
False.
Anyway, okay, give me a call. Thanks.
Sick. All right.
You want? I mean, should we just call him?
Oh God.
we should plan this out a little better.
I don't think
we'll do a little bit of planning.
I don't think we can. Yeah. Well.
All right.
We'll do some planning. But anyway, Mad Mike Hughes, the limo driver / daredevil, potentially a guest on the What If podcast.
While
Potentially
we're
coming to
in
you soon.
here, we got a couple other voicemails. Let's play a couple.
Speaking of the Patreon, really quick, if you didn't know, we do 2 episodes a week. You're hearing one of the 2 episodes. The second episode of your week is on patreon.com/whatifpodcast.
I think this is such a dang neat show.
If you want more of this dang neat show, you can just give us $5 a month and you get double the What If. That's 2 episodes every week instead of just the 1. Plus, you get access to a back catalog of 90 some. I think it's over 100 episodes now. We've got
who the heck knows
live streams up there, links to soundboard stuff. It's a pretty fun place. So just $5 a month, patreon.com/whatifpodcast.
I forgot. Have I cussed yet?
I don't know. I for sure have.
Okay.
I actually.
If I did, I'm starting again now. No cussing.
Why?
What up, boys? We're back. Oh, we're climbing up a really steep cliff.
Hey, don't call us while you're climbing steep cliffs.
Okay, guys.
We don't endorse
We
this
do not
behavior.
endorse dangerous activities while dialing. Us.
So we might go down. I'm in slides.
I do endorse doing dangerous activities in slide sandals, though. I'm currently wearing slide sandals.
Spencer is for sure wearing slides with socks right now.
I fuck with it. I spent all of last week wearing sweat shorts, slide sandals, and tall socks. Never felt better.
I get it, man.
Just got to do it. Just got to send it.
You're finding your running speed as a person.
Absolutely.
Really quick. Sorry. I don't know what prompted this call. I'm sure we'll get more
we could play it and
more
find
details.
out. Yeah.
But just the opening of we're climbing a steep cliff in slides right now as an open, pretty strong.
Hopefully they saw a UFO. Let's see.
Also, I was listening to your podcast about the first UFO encounter, and
Betty and Barney
about
Hill.
the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I've never listened to them, so I don't know how they are. But
God bless you. Keep it that way.
a lot of me wants to say that they're good just to go against Spencer.
Yes.
Fair.
Appreciate you.
So, I love you, Spencer, of course.
Love you too.
But also, it's fun to, that.
I know.
Holy
I get it.
Shit, this is a steep now. Earlier when we called, the second we hung up, I slipped down the hill. I wish I caught that because that was fucking hilarious. I don't know if we're going to make this, man. But if we die, like I'm saying, it was definitely aliens.
I like that there are multiple people on this phone call.
For
also.
sure there are. Yeah.
All right. Have a good day, boys. Listen to some Red Hot Chili Peppers. Love you.
Thank you. Love you too. That's fucking incredible.
I was upstairs. So I was in South Carolina recording a record last week.
Yes.
It's a situation where like main floor is house, upstairs is studio.
Yes.
So I'm upstairs and I hear this, I have the door open and I hear music coming from downstairs and it's Red Hot Chili Peppers, Californication.
Yes.
And I came downstairs and Toki Wright is standing in the kitchen making us all dinner because God bless that man.
Yeah.
Blasting the heck out of some Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Did you Like, I know you have a lot of respect for that man. Did that impact your take at all?
No, I told him to change it, and he told me to frick off.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
kept listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers while cooking me dinner, and I was like, you know what? You're right.
Good.
I'm gonna go back to mixing your record, making you sound good.
You make me some dope mashed potatoes.
Yep.
I'm gonna go make some dope records.
That's crazy. That is actually what he was making.
Fuck off. Are you serious?
Stop swearing, bro.
Why?
Frick off.
No, I'm doing it, man.
Heck off.
I'm doing it all I want.
Yeah, he actually was.
It's my favorite part of the show.
He was boiling some taters and mashing them up.
Bro, how did I know that?
Dude,
Should I go buy a lottery ticket?
probably.
Fuck.
Hey.
I'm scared. No, y'all, we really didn't talk about that. Of all the foods in the whole wide world.
Uh-huh. Crazy. All right. Let's talk about...
Do we have another one?
Oh, I mean, we got a bunch. I don't know.
Let's play one or two more.
All right.
Hey guys, it's Alan from Florida. I just subscribed to your Patreon.
Thank you.
I'm not that far in, but you just sent out a call for people to subscribe to your Patreon to give you a call. So I'm
Sick.
doing that. I don't know if you're still calling people back because again, I'm very behind. But if you call me back, that'd be rad as hell. I'm trying to bring back rad. I don't know how successful I'll be.
I say rad,
But,
don't worry.
Love you, bye.
Awesome. Should
Yeah.
we call Alex?
I've got 10,000 things that I've
Mm.
want to get to this week.
All right.
To the point where it could be 2 parts, but I don't want to do 4 weeks of UFOs in a row. So we'll call Alan back on the Patreon. Let's talk about UFOs.
We could do 4 weeks.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
UFOs.
I always try and cram it in and then it never ends up working, but I'm going to try.
Guys, guess what we're doing this week? You probably know because you already hit play on this episode and you saw the title. But we are doing the OGest
We're catching up on all the classics,
of
bud.
OG classics. How did we go 150 episodes of a show that talks about aliens most of the time
Without ever talking about Roswell?
without ever talking about Roswell?
I don't know. I do not know. I was reading, so I read Stanton Friedman's book. I've read 2 Stanton Friedman books in the last couple weeks.
God bless you and him.
Crash at Corona.
Oh, is that the name of it?
Yeah.
That's not Roswell.
And it's 70 miles
Adjacent.
Yeah. And I was at my in-laws' house and my father-in-law was like, "What are you reading?" I started telling him about it. Turns out he used to live at Roswell Air Force Base when he was a kid.
Fuck out of here.
Not in the 1940s, unfortunately, but I knew. So his dad, my grandfather-in-law,
Yeah, I'll allow it.
was a surgeon, and they bounced around to like 10 or 12 different Air Force bases when he was a kid.
Bro, that's crazy.
And he spent, I think said it was like a year and a half or 2 years at Roswell.
Damn.
This would have been late 50s, early 60s, but
You know, if we wanted to start a hoax, this would be a really good time for you to continue what your father-in-law said about his time at Roswell.
well,
When
sorry.
you interviewed him, did he say
How many aliens he saw?
that he clapped them cheeks?
Gross.
What?
It's maybe my least favorite part of that whole meme.
It's pretty good.
Is it? Anyway, I read, Crash at Corona,
'Kay.
which is Stanton Friedman and Don Berliner's book.
Okay.
There's also The Day After Roswell, written by Philip J. Corso and William Burns. Have you ever, on the early seasons of Ancient Aliens, the dude with the, he's always got like the transitions lenses on.
Bro, they all have transition
Well,
lenses.
anyway.
This Philip Corso?
Bill Burns, William Burns.
Oh, William, I'm going to look up a picture right now.
I didn't get too far into that book because in the introduction, it says, quote, "The military found itself fighting a 2-front war, one against the communists and one against the extraterrestrials.
That didn't happen.
So we used the extraterrestrials' own technology against them, feeding it to our defense contractors and then adapting it for use in space-related defense systems. It took us until the 80s, but in the end, we were able to deploy enough of the Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars, to achieve the capability of knocking down enemy satellites, killing electronic guidance systems, and disabling enemy spacecraft. It was alien technology that we used: lasers, accelerated particle beam weapons, and aircraft equipped with stealth features. And in the end, we not only outlasted the Soviets and ended the Cold War, but we forced a stalemate with the extraterrestrials, who were not so invulnerable after all."
Bro.
Yeah, I didn't make it very far into that one.
Bro.
Mm-hmm. Can you return books to Amazon?
Ebooks?
No, I got the paperback.
Oh, I thought you meant like, can I
Look
send
at this thick boy of just total nonsense.
What?
Yeah.
All right, let me see this really quick. I know I go off on this rant regularly, so I will do a very abbreviated version of it right now. How are you allowed to say the paragraph you just said in
That's
the
on page,
introduction
It's on page 4
of a book? And people
There
are
are
like,
300 pages after that paragraph.
this is a fucking Simon & Schuster book, dude. Simon & Schuster, some fucking editor at Simon & Schuster.
Another beer.
Yeah, read that and was like, fuck it, ship it, bro. Looks good to me. Yeah. This works. No, it doesn't.
But it did.
I
guess.
I just, you
My
can't
dumb butt
say
bought it.
something that, dumb butt, get that shit out of here, dog. You can't say something so outrageously unsubstantiated. Oh my God. Bro.
Open to a random page. Hit him with it. Hit him with it.
This is page, this is still in the Roman numerals. We're just past the acknowledgements. And the
kill
quote on the page is from Davy fucking Crockett. And the quote is, be sure you're right, then go ahead.
Dang, that's just science.
Is there ever been a more outrageous just gonna send it? Or like still gonna send it than that?
You guys silly? I'm still gonna send
Yeah,
it.
like Davy Crockett. Be sure you're right, then go ahead. I'm pretty sure I'm right. We were in a space war with fucking alien technology, and that's how it all happened. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm gonna go ahead and ship this book through Simon and Schuster.
Boop. Here.
Oh my fucking God!
All right, so
this is
we're not
outrageous.
gonna focus on that one. But if you're looking for a Roswell book, don't buy that one. Or if you want to read it, I'll send it to you because I don't want it. Anyway.
I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna highlight every lie in here, and then I'm gonna send him.
You're just gonna like pour a bunch of highlighter fluid into a bowl and
Soak
dip it.
And then mail it back to him.
Yeah.
Dearest William, I've highlighted the lies in your book. Oops, everything.
Big trash.
All right. So yeah, those two books, and then there's a documentary called Roswell 70 Years Later from our guy Nick Redfern.
All right.
That's available on Amazon Prime for free.
Was he wearing something cool in it?
He had a cool hat on. Yeah, and like a sick black beanie.
Sounds like Nick Redfern.
And UFO Secret: The Roswell Crash, The Best Evidence, which is a nice like late 80s, early 90s produced documentary, also available for free on Amazon Prime.
Is that
They really send it too.
Is that in a 4:3 ratio?
Oh yeah,
Sick.
absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah. So let's just start with what may have allegedly happened.
Let's start at the very beginning.
It's a little tough to summarize all of it because the story evolved over the last whatever it is, 60 some years.
Yeah.
But no, math is hard. 72 years. On July 4th-ish of 1947, which was about 2 weeks after Kenneth Arnold's UFO sighting.
Which one is Kenneth Arnold?
That is widely reported as the first like modern UFO sighting. He was the dude who was flying his airplane and saw a bunch of silvery discs.
Oh, yeah.
Led to the coining of the term flying saucer.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember this.
So 2 weeks after that, there was an especially severe thunderstorm in the desert around Roswell, New Mexico. And a rancher named Mac Brazel went out to survey his property after the storm.
Sick name.
He lived about 70 miles north of Roswell. And he was just checking for storm damage, making sure his animals were okay, etc.
Doing the rounds.
Yeah. And while he's doing that, he comes across some debris in a field that he can't identify. And he said it was spread out about a length of about 3/4 of a mile and a width of a couple hundred yards. So there's this long strip, basically, of debris.
Got it.
The material that he found included a very thin but extremely strong metallic foil. So like aluminum foil, but strong enough that you can't rip or tear or cut into it.
Okay.
But still malleable like aluminum foil.
Okay.
Or they said lead foil, which is, I guess, a thing that people were doing out here in the 40s.
Hope your cows didn't eat it, bud.
He also found some I-beams, like support beams, with some sort of writing on them, which some people have described as being hieroglyphic in nature, not like an alphabet, but symbols and images.
When you say
geometric shapes.
When you say some people, do you mean the guy that found it?
Well, here's the thing. Most of this information is second or third at best hand information.
Sure.
So we don't have a lot of quotes from Mac Brazel, for instance. We have quotes from his son or someone who heard from someone that he saw this.
Sure.
Or there's very little, well, there's no physical evidence, and there's very little even direct eyewitness accounts of this stuff. Partially because it happened 70 years ago.
We didn't have Twitter.
Well, and anyone who was in a professional adult role of any kind in 1947 is probably dead.
Oh, well, that too.
Yeah.
But also we didn't have like the documentation
Right.
stuff that we have today.
He allegedly finds this thin, strong metal foil, I-beams with some sort of hieroglyphic or geometric symbols on them, and a material that he said looked like parchment paper but couldn't be torn, ripped, cut. So it was also extremely strong, but very thin and paper-like.
Never mind.
Okay. He takes some of this material to the sheriff to see if they can identify it, and they can't. So the sheriff then contacts the nearby Roswell airfield, the Army airfield, because the Air Force didn't exist yet in 1947, it turns out.
Really?
Uh-huh. I don't remember what year it was. Yeah.
So the Army was all of ground and air?
Yeah. So it was Roswell Army Airfield at the time. But anyway, the sheriff calls them thinking it might be something related to or belonging to them, or that they could at least figure out what it is better than the sheriff could.
Hey, did you lose something?
Right. So they don't know, at least from the phone call and the description, what it is. So they send 2 guys out to check it out. One is Major Jesse Marcel. He's the dude, if you've ever seen the Roswell photo of holding up the debris, he's like crouching down and holding up the
like
shiny...
kneeling in the...
That's him. And another officer named Cavitt, who we don't have a first name for, but Cavitt.
Okay.
They drive out to Brazel's property about 70 miles from the base to check out this stuff, and they've been told by Brazel that there's a bunch more of it just laying out in his field.
And do we know, had he like collected every piece of it he could find at this point, or did he just find it in his field and go like, y'all should come look at your shit out here?
Yeah, he picked up some of it and then brought it in to the sheriff, but there was still way more out in his field.
Got it.
When Marcel and Cavitt got there, they noticed that there was not an impact crater of any kind, and the stuff seemed somewhat or like fairly evenly distributed across this area.
Yep.
So they determined that something must have either broken up before it hit the ground, like something exploded in midair, and this was the debris that had been blown or scattered somehow.
Right.
Or that whatever this thing that crashed was very light. So it wouldn't have caused like a deep impact into the ground.
It would have just sort of shredded once it started.
Would have been something moving
hitting
relatively
things.
fast to have been spread over that much area, but something light enough to not make a crater of any kind.
Sensible.
Yeah. They packed up most of the stuff into their 2 vehicles and brought it back to the base.
Okay.
The story goes, according to Friedman at least, that stuff was then shipped to Wright Patterson in Dayton, Ohio.
Yes. And this is where official What If correspondent DJ Names' family lived for a little while. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, he lived on that base for a while, as did Sophia Eris.
Why do all of our friends and family live on famous alien bases?
They went to school together at Wright-Patterson for a while.
Bro, what if everyone who's connected to us is just an alien and they're watching
They're all
out?
plants.
They're plants because they know we're talking about this shit.
Damn it.
Fuck. We've been had. Run for your life.
All right, so some of the stuff allegedly went to Wright-Patterson in Ohio. This is now July 6th or 7th-ish. The dates vary depending on the account.
I saw that too. I saw in one version of it, I saw that he said he had first noticed something in his field as early as like June 14th or something like that.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that.
But then somebody was like, oh yeah, but then it was corrected later that it was actually early July. I don't know.
Okay. Everything that I've read puts it somewhere between like July 4th and the 8th. So some of the stuff starts coming out through the press around the 7th or 8th. On the 8th, the Roswell Daily Record, which was the local newspaper, runs a story on the front page of the paper with the headline, Roswell Airfield Captures Flying Saucer on Ranch in Roswell Region.
Bro. Big if true.
Well, and this is based on a press release from the base. And in the article, it reads, quote, the intelligence office of the 509th Bombardment Group at Roswell Army Airfield announced at noon today that they have come into possession of a flying saucer. So they sent out an actual press release saying, we found a flying saucer out in the desert, and now we have it.
So my question about this is,
Jesus.
Where did
punch the shit out of my microphone?
He's getting excited. We're getting revved up over here.
Oh, I swore.
Is that right?
25 minutes. Ass. Eat pant.
Eat pant.
Carry on.
Was this so we talked about the Kenneth Arnold sighting being the one that sort of coined the term flying saucer?
Yeah, he said something like it looked like something skipping across. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he described them in a way that then a news article about it called them flying saucers, and then that stuck.
Okay. I guess my question is, like, whose reckless ass on this army base allowed a term that was not like, I mean, it doesn't mean anything at the time, right?
Well, I had a hard time finding context around just how well known this topic would have been at the time.
Okay.
Like how big of a deal was the Kenneth Arnold sighting? Was that a national news story?
Oh, sure.
And that enough so that 2 weeks later, people would have related this to that story?
But like, they couldn't have come up with that term independently.
Right.
So it had to have infected them somehow.
So we can jump ahead a little bit, I guess. If you look at it, well, either A, they both saw or captured real craft from another planet.
Yes.
Kenneth Arnold saw them. 2 weeks later, the Army captured one.
Right.
Or the Army is using this as a cover story for whatever is actually going on, trying to capitalize on the recent public interest in flying saucers and the like.
Right. But if the Army itself is releasing a press release with the phrase flying saucer in it,
yeah,
that's not the press trying to capitalize. That's like...
No, I'm saying the Army may have been in an attempt to create a cover story for whatever was actually going on. As in, this will catch on in the press and distract, because it's been in the news lately and it's on people's minds in a way that will distract from what we're actually doing. If we can convince a bunch of people that it's aliens, then they won't worry about whatever we're doing.
You know,
Which then, to be fair, the next day they released a second press release claiming that it was just from a weather balloon. So they also acknowledged that they goofed.
Is it
one way or
not
the other?
Potentially the ultimate irony in the history of all of this stuff that the possibility is that everyone thinks the government is covering up UFOs, and the reality is that the government decided to use the concept of UFOs to cover up everything else?
There's absolutely some of that happening.
For sure.
There are documented instances of that, and we'll probably talk about a couple in this episode.
But isn't that just like a phenomenal and ultimate irony that everyone's like, what's the government really hiding? They said it was a flying saucer, but then they said it was a weather balloon. I bet it was a flying saucer, and they're trying to cover it up now. And they're like, no.
Well, because now you're never going to guess that it's a third thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not going to know that this was a balloon from Project whatever, Mogul or Mogul. Is that right?
Yeah.
This is a balloon from Project Mogul with an audio recorder on it, listening to Soviet Union atomic bomb detonations from hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. And right.
Which is, I think, to skip ahead to the end of this whole episode, probably what was actually happening. But anyway, they put out a press release saying it's a flying saucer. The next day they put out another press release saying, just kidding, it's a weather balloon that crashed. Now, a lot of the reason that this has caught on or got reinvigorated later is because the weather balloon explanation doesn't make a ton of sense. Mac Brazel had found and returned weather balloons on his property before.
Oh, that's interesting.
So if he found a weather balloon, he's not going to call the sheriff and say, I don't know what this is, after he's found several of them before and brought them back to the base.
He's going to say, WTF, mate.
He's just going to pick it up and bring it back because they paid people to bring them back.
Right. Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because they want, if you don't get them back, you don't get any of the information from them.
Right.
So they would,
I see. So he's not going to go, what the fuck is this? He's going to go, oh, sick, I just made another $50.
Right. Also, weather balloons don't spread out over 3/4 of a mile. They're not that big.
Right.
The balloons in Project Mogul were, but I think that's what really muddied the waters, is that at that point it became apparent that the military was lying about at least some aspect of this.
Right.
And then they had already put out the flying saucer bit. So people are like, they're lying and there's something about a flying saucer? Now there's some weird shit.
Lit.
I'm cussing. Fuck it.
Fuck it. We are the sweary
Just
boys.
going to send it. Mac Brazel was also, again, allegedly taken into military custody for a week. Which, if we're assuming is true, there's, again, very little to no documentation of almost all of this. It could support either side of this story. Either the side of there was really an alien spacecraft that crashed and they needed a week to either debrief him or brainwash / reprogram him or make him an offer convincing enough to never talk about aliens for the rest of his life.
Right.
Or if we're going this was a secret Project Mogul related crash where one of these balloons that was spying on the Soviets that no one knew about. Well, now he knew about it. And not only did he know about it, he had pieces of it in his possession for an amount of time that they weren't sure of. He could have had it for weeks before he brought it to anyone's attention.
Right.
They don't know what he knows. You got to find out what he knows, and you got to convince him to shut the fuck up about it without actually telling him what's going on at the same time.
Right. Like, they don't know that if the Project Mogul balloons had audio recorders on them, potentially with, you got
to figure out what he knows. Yeah. And if he actually knows some stuff, then you got to convince him that he either doesn't know stuff or you got to give him enough money to not tell anyone about the stuff he knows.
Right.
Okay. That's like the earliest version of the story.
Word.
Sort of stops there. This happened in 47.
Right.
And it went away pretty quickly. There was the story on the 7th or 8th, and then the follow-up story the next day saying, just kidding, weather balloon. And most people just dropped it. I think partially because we were 2 years removed from the end of World War II. If the government tells you, especially in a town that is, I think a third of the people living in Roswell at one point worked for the government or military.
Oh, that's wild. I didn't know that.
That base the base closed at one point, and a third of the population of Roswell left overnight.
Damn, that's wild.
But anyway, if you live, near an Air Force base, you just won World War II. There are things flying through the sky, and the military says, we got this covered. Don't worry about it. You're probably not going to worry about it.
Right.
Especially if given the extremely mundane explanation of a weather balloon. It's not even military related. We're just checking the weather. We're checking the forecast.
Yeah. You've got enough faith in that.
Yeah. So the story didn't really pop up again until the 80s when people started writing about it. And that seems like the point where a lot of the extra stuff enters the story in terms of actually recovering a UFO and recovering both living and deceased aliens.
Let's fucking go. What do we know what resuscitated this story in the 80s? Like, was there a moment or an individual?
Well, there was a book written by William Moore and Charles Berlitz, who also wrote that wild ass Philadelphia experiment book that we talked about way back when.
Oh, Jesus.
Which was full of extremely suspect reporting, I guess, to be generous.
I'm fairly certain that's the first episode we ever did where we said we're going to start the episode with an allegedly quote and we're going to close it with an allegedly quote.
So those guys brought it back in 1980 with a book called, I think it was just called like The Roswell Incident or something like that. William Moore also got caught up in the whole disinformation stuff that was going on in the 80s with Paul Benowitz and Richard Doty.
Mirage Men.
Yeah. So Moore got stuff from Doty and others.
Oh, sick.
And eventually got realized he had been had and like left the UFO field by the end of the 80s because he was putting stuff out there that was intentionally given to him to distribute to other UFO enthusiasts to mislead them about things. So that's how this story got reborn, is through that guy. And that's the point, as far as I can tell, when aliens and actual UFOs being recovered enter the narrative.
Interesting.
And then since then, every few years, somebody writes another book about it.
Okay.
Friedman's book was 92, I think. That Burns and Corso book was like early 2000s. There are a couple others, but...
Do we know, like, I know that all of these stories have had a pretty significant impact on the city of Roswell as a whole, like it is a mecca at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know, was that evolving in the city previous to the 80s, or was it more of like did the elevated intensity versions of these stories that came out later, were they the ones that had the like impact on?
So in one of the documentaries I watched, the Roswell 70 Years Later one, they actually start the film by interviewing the mayor of Roswell.
Oh, that's cool.
And he mentions the base, or a base. I don't know if it was Roswell, like the Roswell Air Force Base, but a base, or maybe that base closed. I think he said in 67 or 68 or something. And that's when a third of the population left. And he actually credits the tourism based on the UFO and alien stuff as like with helping them survive economically.
Wow.
And transitioning to a more tourism-based economy out of necessity, almost. Or not almost, out of necessity.
So it had historically been in everyone's best interest to turn that knob a little bit.
Play it
higher.
up, yeah. Buy into it. Yeah. That's his take, at least.
I mean, he's got a pretty viable take as the fucking mayor.
Right. Also,
Interesting.
that interview is now, whatever, 20-some years old, but
still, I mean,
Or no, just kidding. 70 years later. That's only a couple years old. Getting my two docs confused.
Oh, okay.
70 years after 47 would be 2017.
Right. Is he the current mayor or he was a mayor?
Don't know.
Okay.
Come on.
Yep. No, we're good. We're good.
All right. So aliens and UFOs start showing up. A man named Grady Barnett claims that he saw the actual craft and was perhaps the first person to find this craft. He was a field engineer for the U.S. Soil Conservation Service.
Okay.
And was working out in the desert when he found a metallic, he said, a quote, large metallic object stuck into the ground. And some alien bodies hanging around it.
Bro, you can't just...
I have a quote from him.
Please let me hear it.
They were like humans, but they were not humans. The heads were round, the eyes were small, and they had no hair. The eyes were oddly spaced. They were quite small by our standards, and their heads were larger in proportion to their bodies. Their clothing seemed to be one piece and gray in color, and you couldn't see any zippers, belts, or buttons. They seemed to be all males, and there were a small number of them.
And this is from
a dude named Grady Barnett who claims to have been working out in the field for the U.S. Soil Conservation Service when he saw a UFO with some aliens around it.
What year, though?
Well, he claims this happened in 47.
But what year is the quote from? Though?
I don't know.
Okay.
Is it a quote? Who the fuck knows?
Yeah. Is Grady a real person?
Did somebody at some point put those words in quotations and attribute it to a guy named Grady? Yes.
And
that's about all we can defend. If I say.
I know this is mad stupid, but I'm going to say it out loud anyway.
Great. I'm excited.
I think about these stories just in the most recent context we have of the hypothetical version of Roswell that is a top secret intelligence related, like international geopolitical weapon of either investigation or intelligence or defense or whatever, crashes in a field. You lie about it once to create a like a trope story, right? Like a thing that connects to all the other things. And then you create another story on top of that story to make it look like you're trying to hide that second story.
Or someone genuinely goofed and was like, I know, we'll put out a UFO story. And then someone else was like, that's a terrible idea. Let's just tell them it was a weather balloon.
Yeah.
And hope that one sticks and people forget about the UFO one.
Right. But like, regardless, I feel like what I'm thinking about in particular right now is all the stuff that's being leaked, quote unquote, or whatever, through to the stars. And thinking about it as like,
man, the more and more I think about that stuff, and we can't get into it because it'll take the rest of this episode.
Let's go.
The more and more I hear from them, the more it seems like it is a military-based disinformation thing.
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. They have a bunch of military ties. Elizondo is all up in there.
Yeah.
They're constantly referring to things as threats and about how dangerous everything is.
Yep. And like, what would make more sense than if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, there are defense projects and U.S. government projects that are graduating past what we understand technologically today as it
Right.
relates to drones.
They
and
always are,
They always are.
right? I mean, that's the military is consistently
Whatever. There's a
couple decades ahead of us.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a truism. It's like 20,
Yeah.
like what we're getting now. The military had 20 years ago or whatever it is. But like, there's
we can only develop technology and justify spending money on it if we can kill people
with it. Exactly. But there's like this interesting element of all that stuff that's happening right now, where it's like, is that what's happening? Are there things that are happening that they're trying to put a framework around them? And does it?
Are you saying is that what To the Stars is doing? Or is that what was happening in 47 at Roswell? Or both?
I'm saying both.
Yeah.
I'm drawing parallels between what's happening today and what was happening then. And
I mean, we know that it was happening at most, if not all, points in between.
Right. So why would it not be happening before and after?
Yeah.
For sure. And with the To the Stars stuff specifically, I think like we see the word patsy a lot, but is there a better patsy than Tom DeLonge?
No, because he has. I genuinely don't think he realizes what he's doing.
Right.
I think he's just so over the top, enthusiastic, all in.
Yep.
That you could tell. I mean, he believes literally everything that he's told.
Right.
Regardless of the source or the information, he wants to believe all of it, and he wants to be
totally
the person at the forefront of it.
And it makes me think about, I remember in the first Meltdown episode we did with Rob, where we talked about the interview that Tom did with Joe Rogan about the story of like the airport Denny's, I think it was, where Tom says he got approached in a Denny's in a fucking airport by someone who said, I need to talk to you about something.
You know, man, I was just, I don't remember where. Anyway, the Paul Benowitz, William Moore, Richard Doty stuff.
Yeah.
They always met them in like well-trafficked restaurants.
Interesting. It made them feel like they were top secret or something.
I don't know. Or if it was just like a cover by being, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Hiding something in plain sight kind of situation.
Sure.
I don't know what the angle is, but I just put that together for the first time of that weird little consistency throughout.
That's interesting. Because the thought that I was just having was, I remember in that episode being like, bro, you're a fucking liar. Like, you're just inventing shit. And now
I don't think he's lying, man. I just think he's in some shit that is above his pay grade.
And that's the first time that I have had a different take right now is, oh, maybe they just said, if we pull Tom DeLonge aside into Denny's and tell him that we're top secret agents and we have information for him, he's gonna like fucking be in it forever.
Who wouldn't?
Preach.
Right.
Yeah, you and I would both be like, I'll hear you out.
I'm gonna go listen at least. And if you show me something convincing, I'm gonna have a hard time just putting it away and calling bullshit.
Right.
Like,
and
there's got to be some, especially if you're already into this shit, and like when you're actively investigating and spending your own money and like committed to the level that all of these people that have been used in that way are, your curiosity is got to be insurmountable at that point.
Totally. 100%.
When you've committed so much time and money and energy to finding out a truth, and someone presents you with something that could be that truth, I don't know if you can ignore it.
And it's someone who legally is allowed to flip open a badge that says,
and lie to your face.
Yeah, flip open an Air Force badge and a manila envelope with fucking photoshopped photos in it, shut the whole thing and say, this never happened.
Right.
Like, that's completely legal for them to do and totally fuck up your brain. And you walk out of a Denny's in the fucking Newark, New Jersey airport and you're like, holy freaking shit, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess my mind so frequently has been, people invent more of this than they even maybe personally realize. And I think just in this short meditation on Roswell, it's like maybe the government has so much more, they get so much more value out of actually doing these little things with little people all the time.
I guarantee you there were government employees at Contact in the Desert.
You think so?
Yeah.
To what end?
Awareness, if nothing else, like just keeping tabs on what the kooks are saying.
Sure. Feeding
Because
them?
every once in a while, I'm sure somebody gets something right just by accident.
Yeah. Well,
Also, yeah, maybe control that narrative a little bit.
feeding them, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
With
wasn't
all this government whistleblower shit, like with Wilcock and some of those goofballs,
yeah.
they always have these anonymous inside sources that they trust 1,000%. And then he goes and repeats that stuff to a room full of 3,000 people, 4,000 or 5,000 people.
And what's better than if you feed them something super small, super occasionally, that gives them the tiniest modicum of credibility?
Well, some of it's got to be right too.
Exactly.
Part of the idea is like some of the information has to be genuine, and then the other 80% is bullshit.
But then you go spew the bullshit, and the bullshit isn't provable, but the 20% you were right about is enough for people to go,
And-
they know something I don't.
But also that 20% that's right gets discredited because it's mixed in with 80% bullshit.
So people like you and I look at them and go, fucking,
all bullshit.
Fucking whatever.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Dude, Doty used to go to MUFON conferences and shit and just sit in the audience.
I remember that from the Mirageman documentary, and like, didn't he get called out occasionally for being like people recognized him? And yeah,
I'm sure that that's happening, and I'm sure they've gotten better at it in the last 70 years.
yeah, preach. Especially in a day and age where it's not. I mean, when did the Doty
I think that was
Benowitz stuff happen?
80s.
Yeah, so like, speaking of my comment earlier, like they didn't have Twitter, they didn't have private messaging
Right.
or fucking forums or Reddit or 4chan or whatever.
And part of what they were doing too is working with multiple investigators, researchers, UFO enthusiasts, whatever,
yeah,
and giving them all the same bullshit. Because the only way to like confirm this stuff was with each other.
right.
And so if they were all coming to the same conclusions about something, well, then that's probably right. And that's what's going to get disseminated to everyone else
Right.
who looks to those people for information about this shit because it wasn't accessible in the ways that it is now.
Right.
But also now the information that's accessible on the internet and other places is still filled with all of that.
Right.
Anyway, back to the story because we're almost an hour into this shit.
Heyo.
Real quick, before we get to that, this week's episode is sponsored by Pessimist's Archive.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like it already.
It's a fun, funny, high-energy history podcast about why people resist new things.
I resist all the new things.
Why are we scared of new shit?
I hate change.
In each episode, they look at the moment that something new was introduced, something that today we think of as commonplace, like recorded music,
Ooh.
umbrellas,
We make that. We use
Bikes.
those. We use those.
cars,
Yep. We
coffee,
have those.
the elevator.
We drink those.
And they try-
I hate elevators.
I drink so many elevators. And they try and understand why it freaked everybody out. I recently listened to their episode about comic books, and it was fucking awesome.
Oh, that's tight.
They have great information. It's super well produced, and it's super engaging. So go listen to Pessimist Archive wherever you get podcasts.
Oh, I get podcasts on all kinds of places, and I'm going to listen to Pessimist Archive on all of the places.
Yeah.
Get some.
Back to the spaceships. Grady Barnett claims to have seen the UFO with aliens around it.
Bodies, big heads, gray suits, no zippers.
Right. Big metal slab stuck into the ground.
Sick.
Another gentleman by the name of Gerald Anderson claims that he saw a crashed craft and aliens around it when he was 6 years old. He described seeing a silver circular object stuck into the ground at an angle, and next to it, outside of the ship, but next to it were two dead aliens and one live one.
Oh,
The live one was apparently injured and was very scared of him. He was with his brothers and his dad. He
Whoa.
claims. The alive alien was injured and very scared of them.
okay.
They tried to communicate with it and were obviously unable to.
Sure.
And his uncle touched his shoulder at one point. The alien's shoulder.
Okay.
Yeah, he's trying to comfort the little guy.
Did he tap? Was it a tap or like, come here, bud?
It's okay, buddy.
Sorry about
your friends.
Sorry about your friends in your car.
Yeah. There's also a gentleman named Glenn Dennis who was a mortician in Roswell in the 40s.
Bro, some very strong names
Glenn
in this
Dennis?
story.
Yeah.
Glenn Dennis. Mac Brazel.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He was a mortician in Roswell, and he worked at a funeral home that had a contract with the Roswell airfield.
Yep.
Dennis claims that on July 9th or maybe the 10th, again, the dates are just all fucky on this whole thing.
Right.
He got several phone calls, like back to back, from a mortuary officer at Roswell Airfield asking him very specific questions about small caskets, and specifically hermetically sealed ones. And then another call asking him about the decomposition rates of tissue that had been in the sun for a few days. And then the best way to preserve tissue.
What?
Now, Glenn at least has done interviews and gone on the record saying this stuff. And it's come directly from him. So it's not like I heard from my dad who talked to a guy in a bar once who
That
said
worked
this.
there. Yeah.
Glenn has gone on camera and told this story from a firsthand perspective. Now, he never actually saw anything, but he had some very weird conversations with people. He also, that same day after he got those phone calls, went to the base hospital, which was attached to the mortuary. And when he got there, saw two military police officers standing guard outside the entrance to the ER section of the hospital. And he went inside because he was allowed to. They all, like, people knew who he was.
Sure.
And when he got inside, noticed that there were several high-ranking officers milling about that wouldn't normally be there. And he ran into his girlfriend that was a nurse at the hospital.
Okay.
Sees her in the hallway, and she starts yelling at him like, "What the hell are you doing here? You got to get out. You're going to get us both in trouble. You're going to get me killed.
Yikes.
You got to go." This commotion is noticed by the military police officers. They go grab him and escort him out.
And he said, "But let me see them aliens right quick."
Well, she then called him later that day and told him that there were 3 alien bodies at the hospital.
Damn.
She said they had been found about a mile or 2 away from a crashed craft, and that they were then brought to the hospital. 2 of them were dead, and one was like real fucked up.
Got it.
They met in person a couple days later to talk about it. She told him basically the same story.
Yep.
She leaves saying that she's sick and has to go back to the hospital.
Okay.
Dennis never hears from her again.
Oh no, point of separation, bud. Point of separation. What if you've learned anything from this show? Point of separation.
Never sees her again, writes to her at one point, and his letter gets returned to him marked deceased.
Oh, yikes.
Mm-hmm. Again, allegedly. But at least
Good story.
according to Dennis.
According to someone who wants to put their name behind it.
Yeah.
Right.
He's at least speaking for himself, saying,
"This happened to me.
I heard this. I had these conversations. This happened to me." Again,
Let me get that letter, bro."
of course, yeah, exactly. There's in 70 years, not a single piece of physical evidence of any of these, like the main story or the tangential stuff. None of it has ever shown up. There are 100 people who've said, "I saw wreckage.
Bodies.
I handled wreckage. My dad had some in a cigar box in his closet."
Oh, that's cool.
And none of it has ever shown up. And most of these stories originated when Friedman and others started interviewing people in the 80s about this stuff.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Right. So now we're 30 years later. You've got somebody coming around asking a bunch of questions. And that's what all of this stuff is based on.
Yeah.
Except
Yes.
maybe the Majestic 12 documents?
Give me one. Are we going all the way into Majestic 12
I don't
today?
know. I'll do it quick.
We can't do Majestic 12
Yes,
quick.
we can because it's nonsense.
Oh man, this
Do you
is
disagree?
the What If podcast.
I mean, if you have thoughts on Majestic 12 being legit, I would love to hear them.
I don't have enough that are well researched at this point for me to actually contradict you. Okay, here's what I think about Majestic 12.
Yeah, great.
I think, well, we should talk about them first before I say what I think about them.
Majestic 12 is allegedly a group of scientists and military personnel, 12 of them, a couple of government folks in there,
It would have been great if it was 11 or 13 and they called themselves the Majestic 12.
formed in 47 by executive order of President Truman with the goal of figuring out the craft and stuff that crashed at Roswell.
Yeah.
These
And
documents they showed up in 1984 when they were just mailed to a TV producer's house.
Yes.
We don't know where they came from. We don't know if they're legit or not. We don't know why it took 35 years for them to show up or why they were mailed to a random TV producer on a roll of film.
Yeah.
But it's a bunch of pages of documents talking about alien technology and recovered crash stuff. And you can actually download all of them from the FBI's website.
The FBI has them up.
Yeah, the vault.gov thing.
Pretty wild, the stuff that they allow to just...
Well, they've written over diagonally in huge letters across every page, bogus.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's the watermark is the bogus
But
watermark?
it's handwritten in Sharpie. It's not a water.
funny.
It's not a watermark. Somebody just wrote bogus as big as they could across every page.
And the reason they had to do that was because, for what it's worth, the actual documents themselves are relatively good knockoffs of military documents of the time. There's a lot of issues as well.
Yeah, there's not exactly a consensus, but I think most people think they're fake.
Yeah. No, totally.
Stanton Friedman does not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I love me some Stanton
Well,
Friedman.
at least in the 90s he didn't. I think he may have changed his stance later, but he
Okay.
talks at length about them in the Crash at Corona book and is a supporter of them.
Oh. To what end is he a supporter of them?
He thinks they're genuine.
But what's his what of them makes him believe in them?
To summarize, I think he doesn't believe there's a way to prove it either way convincingly.
Okay.
Because there's just not enough information, right? They're not originals, so you can't date the ink or paper or anything like that.
Right.
He also didn't think that any of the discrepancies that other people point to were necessarily discrepancies or
they weren't sufficient
meaningful
enough to disqualify
discrepancies.
him. Yeah.
People point to the date formatting and that wouldn't have been the way that they formatted things at that location at that time.
Right.
And he's found other documents that are for sure legit that are formatted the same way.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
A lot of people point to, I forget who it was, but there's a memo from an officer dated a certain date, and that officer was known to be out of the country.
Mm.
Friedman says he wouldn't have written that memo himself anyway. Those memos were almost always assembled by someone's staff. He wouldn't have actually written it.
So it would have been a dictated and then sent.
Yeah, he had linguists analyze it compared to stuff that he knew that officer had written, and they said that the voice matched and stuff like that.
Interesting. I guess the reason I like the Majestic 12 stuff is because
just widely considered to be a hoax.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they are fake, which I acknowledge, they're pretty far out, but they're done extremely well. If you download them and you look at them and you look at the formatting and you look at the different combined documents and correspondence and it is an extremely elaborate hoax.
That's part of Friedman's argument too, is that if someone hoaxed this, they knew what they were doing. They would have had access to information that the average person did not.
Right, because
So if
they had
someone-
to get the formatting correct. You had to know how military correspondence worked, and
Yeah.
even if the dating was slightly different, you were getting like stamps correct, and because it's like stamped and things are signed, and it's really elaborate.
Yeah. I think he maybe comes down to eventually like, even if these specific documents are hoaxed, the information in here is probably right. I know. I'm not saying I agree.
Yeah. That's a leap.
Most people don't agree with him on that stuff, and I think he may have changed his opinion
On
later
them
in
later.
life. I'm reading an old version of this book,
Yeah.
or well, it was written a long time ago.
Yeah. No, I would like to at some point read all of them. I have not read all of them. I have read chunks of them. I just find them very interesting because it does feel like if someone did all that work to send a roll of film to a TV producer and nothing came of it, like that is we're talking about probably months of work to make these papers.
I don't really know.
I guess I can't. I'm just hypothesizing. I mean, it's like,
Again, though, like why? Well, whatever. Why a roll of film?
potentially more believable that they weren't yours and you were able to photograph them.
Yeah.
But also
makes it impossible to really analyze them fully.
Totally. It's also easier to spoof. We printed these on paper that we bought at Office Max down the street.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying.
It's easier to spoof the reality of the whole thing. That was a really long way of saying that's why they felt the need to write bogus across all of them, because they're done so well and they are so specifically executed that they could be misconstrued as real.
They did an investigation, or the Office of Special Investigations in the Air Force reviewed these at one point and wrote in their summary, quote, the Office of Special Investigations, this is from their report, advises that the document was fabricated. Copies of that document have been distributed to various parts of the United States. The document is completely bogus.
Word.
So I think that was another part of it, was like, this was not just given to one person. It was eventually given to a bunch of people in a way that seemed maybe strategic in terms of like
influence or education.
Again, maybe some disinformation angles going on.
Sure.
Linda Moulton Howe thinks they're real, for whatever that's worth.
Well, now I think they're fake. So I can't agree with her on literally anything that's ever existed.
All right. If it wasn't aliens.
Yep.
Well, first of all, do you think it was aliens?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
I think I'm mostly with you.
I wish it was aliens, but I don't think it was aliens. Do you want to know? Okay, this is probably, I'm going to caveat another thing I'm about to say is stupid. From all of the descriptions and photographs of what was found, I feel like nothing I've seen or heard described of the crash feels like interstellar alien technology.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there was a paper that was really hard to tear. It's like, okay.
You're building spaceships out of paper?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
And tinfoil and sticks?
Exactly. There were sticks. It's like, fucking okay. I mean, like, yes, I agree. I do not know what they could possibly be capable of if they are intelligent beings from other dimensions or other galaxies or whatever. But when I hear those descriptions of what was found, I'm like, that sounds like a middle school art project. That does not sound like an interstellar craft that carried multiple individuals.
It's so at odds with the descriptions of people who claim to have seen the craft and the aliens. They're describing like a big metal saucer spaceship like we think of with a UFO.
Right.
Stuck into the side of a hill.
Right. Which is like completely different.
And even if it had, so A, it didn't break up above the ground because it was intact enough to stick into the side of a hill.
Yes.
And if it did, we would have been finding big chunks of metal because you're describing a big metal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're finding tinfoil and sticks.
Right. Right. No, that's my take. Is like, that's why I feel like it is not in any way congruent with what I would assume would be found if there was. Yeah.
I just have such a hard time with the timing of all of it too. Like
related to World War II or what?
No, that this story was somehow successfully buried for 33 years. And then suddenly now we all know that there were aliens and a UFO. And
right.
The only way that we know it is because a guy who we know was lying about UFOs interviewed a bunch of people.
Right. Right.
Show me one thing that isn't a secondhand account. Show me one piece of physical evidence or even one person who actually saw something and can describe it in any meaningful way.
Sure. You know what I think the best, and I think the best piece of evidence, and I think the primary reason why this story has lived on and on and on and taken on the life that it has is it's the newspaper page. It's the front page of a city's newspaper that uses the phrase flying saucer found. Like that.
Well, and I think that's why people were so drawn to it in the 80s, because you don't have other examples of that. Especially coming from your source as a press release from the Army.
Exactly. 100%. And to me, that's exactly what it is it's like, it legitimizes it in a way that no other evidence, no other situation legitimizes it.
Yeah.
And so I think like,
even though that lasted 24 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
But pointing back at that, microfiche of that one headline on the front page of a state's newspaper was enough for most people to go, this happened. The news said it happened, and everything after they said it happened is a cover up.
Yeah.
Instead of
because
going,
also our government lies and covers stuff up.
Preach. They've acknowledged as much at this point. Yeah.
Like we have now, at least. And I think that's part of it too. Like now we have so many legitimate reasons not to trust our government and our military. In the 40s, I don't think that was the case for most people.
Sure.
So I think this story really started to catch on in the 80s, 90s, 2000s when we were like, oh, wait, we are doing some wild shit and lying to our citizens about it.
Right.
What else are they maybe lying up to us about?
When
and for how long?
Yeah. And when they corrected that take about flying saucer became a weather balloon, that seems like that could have been a lie too.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, dude. We did it.
Roswell, I'm sure everyone's going to yell at us. We solved it.
We're just, you know what? No one's going to yell at us. We're just going to get like a few corrections in the Facebook group from Rob, like we do whenever we talk about UFOs.
That's also...
And we will appreciate those and signal boost Rob's actual knowledge of these things.
Instead of our breadth and fuckery.
And we'll move on.
Preach. That's exactly what we'll do. Hey, y'all, thank you for listening to the show. We appreciate y'all for being here so goddamn much. We got a couple quick things to tell you about. Number one, Los Angeles. Go to whatifpodcast.com.
Coming for that ass.
/LA. We're coming for that ass. We're going to be at the Satellite on October 30th doing a live episode with comedy from Dave Stone and Ian Abramson, and it's going to be fucking sick, and you should be there. We really need your support, so go to whatifpodcast.com/LA. Get your tickets. Also, Spencer is right. Join the Facebook group. We're at like 1,000 people in that motherfucker. We hang out and post memes and talk about the show. Spencer and I are in there posting photos of our fucking dogs and shit. It's dope. You should join us there. We're at What If Pod on all our social medias. If you want to leave a review, go to iTunes and do that. We love hearing from y'all. We love hearing what you think about the show. If you want to leave us a voicemail, 612-246-4614. We get your emails and we love them. It's